Percarpio? I guess you're my cousin, Nancy, right? We're cousins.
Yeah, I think second cousin, third cousin, that's a...
You were born in 1911,
1911, May 30th.
and that makes you 90 years old.
Yeah.
Does that light bother you?
No, this. You shut this off.
That's what I think. The only things I want to talk about were like your reminiscences, your recollections of, you know, obviously you can remember a lot more than I can. Do you remember anything of the First World War when it ended? You'd have been 6 or 7.
No, I very vaguely, but I do remember when the boys had to go to war. My mother, we lived on Franklin Street in Patterson.
Right.
And she took me, she said, she took me, it was a railroad track on 16th Street all the way down. And there were thousands of boys, all dressed soldiers, ready to go.
On the train.
On the train. And their parents were crying and, you know. I remember that. I was about 6 then.
Right.
I can remember that.
So did Lillian mention that at some point you went with you lived in Italy?
Yes, about 2.5 years.
When was that? I never even knew about that.
My mother, there was a big strike in Patterson. I think it was in 1913. And my father said to my mother, you always want to go and see your mother. Now's a good time. I'm on strike. We're on strike. He said, I'm going to Connecticut. I have friends out there. I could get a job. And it cost him only $25 to send my mother. I was 15 months old, and my brother was 3 months old. So my mother took us both, and we went to Whitley, and we stayed 2.5 years.
So 2.5, if you were a year and a half, and 3, you were 5 when you came back.
Well, I was about 4.5.
So you don't remember Italy at all?
Oh yeah, I remember
You do?
a lot. I remember when my mother took me to Rocca to see his brother, Vincenzo, I don't know, to see him, and we spent the day there. How I remember that good, because he had a little baby, Nunciata.
Oh.
She was only about 3 months old. She was a baby, and they had her in one of these hanging cribs, and they told me to push, you know, so I pushed. I pushed a little bit too hard. She fell out of the crib, and actually, you know, my mother smacked me. She said, yeah, but I was only small myself.
You were only 4 years old.
No, I was only 3 then, see, because I'm 3 years older than Nunciata.
Right.
I just pushed too hard and she fell. I remember that good because then my mother made a scene, everybody made a scene.
And then when you came back here, the strike was over.
Oh yeah, well, it was 2.5 years. My father wanted my mother back after 6 months, it was all settled. Her father didn't want to send his daughter back. He didn't like my father.
Oh, he didn't. Your mother's father didn't like your father.
He said, I don't like that man. He said, I want you to stay here. So he kept his daughter there for over 2.5 years. And my father got pretty angry.
Hoping that would split them up.
Yeah, he first. Then my father wrote that he was going there and to take his wife and his 2 children back home. So my mother said, her father wrote to him, you put 1 foot in my town and I'll shoot you. So my father was afraid to go.
I don't blame him.
He was scared. So anyway, my mother convinced her father, I have to go home. So, sure enough, he said, okay. He got all the passport, whatever it was, they had to get ready to go back on the boat. It was 30 days going. We were on the boat.
30 days?
30 days.
Wow.
It was terrible. I remember these little things that a lot of kids crying. And so anyway, when my mother got to the entrance where they had to show everything, her father gave one passport, only for his daughter. He was keeping us. He said, I'm keeping the children. You could go back, but I'm keeping the children. He did not have the passports for me and my brother. So my mother, and then of course whoever was in charge said that, no, you cannot take the children. They don't have any passport. They don't have anything. They've got to stay with their grandfather. My mother screamed so that the man got so scared. He took us both. He said, go ahead, go with your mother. We came.
Yeah, but you were born in this country. You were American
Yeah,
citizens.
I know, but still and all, my grandfather figured by keeping the children, she'll come back.
She'll come back.
See?
So he really didn't want his daughter to go away.
He did not want her to go. He wanted her to stay there. So,
And by the time the 20s came, the 1920s, when the house, let's say when you were 10 years old, did the houses have electricity that you were in Patterson?
no, they
Electric
had
light?
gas.
Gas lights.
Gas. They had little gas.
And you would light that with a
Matches.
match?
Yeah, with a match.
And what about heat? There was heat in the houses, or you?
No. Little stove. You had
But
a
not
stove.
no central heating.
Oh, never. You didn't get that until we, 50s, 60s. No.
When do you remember that your father had a car, an automobile?
My father never drove.
Never.
Never. Just took transportation. He just walked. My father.
When, around what year do you remember people starting that people you knew? People whose parents worked, your father worked in the factory.
Yeah. My father left. If there was no work in the factory, he used to go to the farms. He used to love to work on the farms. Because his hobby was farming. He did not like to work, because I didn't have to.
When do you remember riding in a car, people had a car?
Well,
This was in Patterson.
yeah, when we lived in Patterson all the time. The only time we had a car at home, my brother Frankie bought a second-hand car. He must have been 17. That was the only time we had a
So
car.
before the 1930s,
Yeah.
27, 28.
Yeah.
So a car was available to people.
Oh,
It
yeah,
wasn't something
was. Yeah, they
extraordinary.
had those, what they
You had to
call
crank it.
Yeah, you had to crank and many times the crank would go off and hit you on
Oh,
the
hit you in the
arm.
hand.
Yeah, I would see that. Gee, look out. Cranky could break your hand.
When did they start putting electricity in the houses?
Well, when,
About what age you think you were, approximately?
it must have been about 13. 13, then many people had electricity into the house.
And it would be for lights. They didn't do anything else with electricity.
No, they're just for lights.
Because they didn't have air conditioning, they didn't have
They didn't even have fans.
just lighting. So you could.
That's all, just lights.
And when did you remember radio? That people were listening to a radio?
We lived on 13th Street. We didn't have no radio. But the man across the street, that must have been about, the radio must have been about 12, 13, I think.
So the
Me
middle,
across the street had the radio they would put on the ears, you know. And then not loud that everybody could hear.
oh, just the one person could hear.
Yeah, so we would go over there and he would put it on our ears to listen.
When do you think people start, when did most
Then
people?
about 15, 16, everybody had radios.
So by the middle of the 20s,
Yeah.
24,
Yeah.
25, people had radios
Oh,
and
yeah.
cars were driving on the streets.
Yeah, they had those Fords. Not too many cars, maybe one. We didn't have people, maybe on our block, it's about 20 families, maybe 2 families had a car.
But you still saw a lot of things being pulled with a horse and wagon.
Oh, yeah.
But people, the factory people did not have a horse at home,
No.
or a cow or anything in the backyard.
They used to, we had very good transportation. It's always trolley cars going up and down.
Do you remember, we always hear that there was a big crash in the stock market.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that happening?
Yeah.
Even though your father probably was not a person
No,
who had
no.
stock, but you remember that news.
Yeah. Yeah. People were,
You'd have been about 18 years old.
they were committing suicide because some people had their life in there, life savings.
And did any of the banks around there close up?
All the banks that they had a bank holiday. All banks were closed. 1 week, you didn't know what bank would open if you had any money. There was depression and bank holiday and this and that. I would rather live then than
When you were a young, your family, when did you start to, did you have a Christmas tree? Did you celebrate those holidays, like the American holidays, Thanksgiving?
And when we were kids,
Yeah.
no, we never had a Christmas tree.
When did that start? Because
Well,
that's not a tradition of Italian people.
Yeah, that started, I must have been about 10 years old. My mother had 7 children then. I was 10, she had 7, we were 7 altogether. Then my father got a little tree, and we'd start, nut balls, we start putting those silver things. Tinsel, and that's it.
So those American traditions you picked up,
Yeah, and little by little, yeah.
and that became something you did, because you did that once you were married. You
Oh, yeah,
celebrated
then
those.
we did that because you went to school, it was different.
And you heard all the
Yeah,
and your parents picked up on that too.
yeah, well, they never had a Christmas tree anyway. They just, they love the holidays because it's a worldwide holiday,
Right.
Christmas, so. But I would rather live in my time than this time.
It was a good time. It was more of an age of innocence before the war.
Yeah, it was nice. It was, I don't know, everything was so natural, so alive. Now everything is fake.
Well, there are more things fake now than there were then.
Yeah.
And you said you had the depression really did not affect you that
No.
severely.
We didn't know what a depression was.
Well, I guess we've covered quite a bit for today. I'll make a copy and give you a copy. You can give it to your
Okay.
children and grandchildren. Thank you very much.
Were reserved